Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today's guest is a transformational force in the world of mindset, high performance, and personal growth. Dr. Noah St. John is a globally recognized executive coach, keynote speaker, and the #1 best-selling author behind the breakthrough method known as Afformations. Known as the mental health coach to the stars and the zero friction doctor, he's helped entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes, and celebrities reprogram their mindset, eliminate head trash, and create quantum leaps in their business and life. Wow, I'm looking forward to this discussion. Noah, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Hilmarie. It's great to be here with you.
Well, let's start with your background. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Dr. Noah St. John, and you can find more about me at noahstjohn.com, or just Google me and you'll find Noah St. John. I'm pretty much the only Noah St. John around. But I'm known for helping entrepreneurs make more in 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months while winning back their lives. And what I mean by that is I'm known for helping entrepreneurs win back, not just make more money, but win back 1 to 3 hours per day and 4 to 8 weeks per year. So for the folks listening to this program, think about your day, your week, your month, and your year, and just imagine getting hours back in your day, getting days back in your month, and getting weeks back in your year. What would that mean to you and your family? So that's really what I'm known for.
Amazing. Well, let's talk about Afformations. What led you down the path of mindset coaching, and how did the concept of Afformations come to life?
Well, I'm going to take you back to tell you a quick story. I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, and I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England, in fact, in the entire United States. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. Now, I hated being poor. I hated that life of poverty because I saw that right down the street, there was great wealth and abundance. So I said, how the heck do I get from here to there? Of course, there was nobody who could help me back then. So I did the only thing I could think of, which is I went to the library and I read every self-help book they had. I went to the self-help section, read every book. So I read over 300 books on self-help, success, all the classics, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey. And they all basically said the same thing. Think positive, work hard, set your goals, use affirmations. If you've ever read a self-help book, you know, they're basically all the same. They all basically say the same thing. So I did that. And I really tried to make it work, but I couldn't get it to work. And so at the age of 25, I was so frustrated that I actually decided to commit suicide. I decided to take my own life at the age of 25. Now, at the last moment, my life was spared, but I didn't know why. And so I said, I've got to find my purpose here on the earth. So I went back to the library, read every book in the spiritual section. Fast forward 5 years later, I was in the shower one morning. It was April 1997, and I was thinking about the fact that I'd read all of these hundreds and hundreds of books, and they all said the same thing. And I'd been trying so hard for so long with nothing to show for it. And one of the things that every book says, if you've ever read a self-help book, you know what an affirmation is. It's a statement of something you want to be true. So like when I do my keynote speeches or keynote presentations for companies, teams, organizations around the world, one of the things I do with my audience members is I'll say, all right, everybody, we're going to say an affirmation just like they taught us. Everybody say, I am rich. And everybody goes, I am rich. And you know what happens next? Everyone starts laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? And they go, well, I'm not rich. And I say, but you just said you were. And they go, yeah, but I don't believe it. So that's the problem with the old method, the method that we were all taught. So in April 1997, I said, what if they're just telling us wrong? What if they left something really important out of the equation? And I was thinking about this, and in my book of Afformations, I call it the shower that changed everything. We've all had those aha moments. You're in the shower or the bath. I mean, this goes back to Greek times. It's an ancient story, right? But it's really true. So I was thinking about this and I said, what is human thought? It's not statements. It's actually the power of questions. And when you change the questions, you change your life. So I said, if the statement that we don't believe is, I am rich, an affirmation, I said, what would the question be? And then I realized the question would be, why am I so rich? And when I asked that question, a whole new world opened up in my mind. And I realized that I had just discovered something, just invented something, a new way to use the power of questions to actually change your life. And so I had to give it a name. And the name that I gave it was Afformations. So it's spelled Afformations. And you can go to affirmations.com and you can learn more about my Afformations method. But really, that's how I discovered it. It was literally a 30-year process that happened in the shower that changed everything.
Absolutely amazing. Wow. So your story, your life story from growing up poor in a rich community, having that drive to want to be rich and then trying every single thing. And as you say, there are plenty of self-help books out there. And unless you can figure something out that can shift your mindset, then it's very difficult, because I think there's a billion people have read the books, but very few people have been able to make that change. And as you said, flipping the whole thing on its head, instead of making statements to now creating questions. So that is what is creating that shift for people.
Yes, that's right.
I love how you call it the shower that changed everything.
You know, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so when you change your perspective, you change your whole world. For example, for thousands of years, we humans believed the earth was flat. Just walk outside and you say, of course it's flat, dum-dum, just look around. 600 years before Columbus, a Greek mathematically calculated that the earth is in fact round. It was one of the ancient Greeks. He showed it. But still, it took a long time for people to believe him. And then, of course, for thousands of years, humans believed that the sun goes around the earth. Because of course it does, dum-dum, just look outside. Of course the sun's going around the earth. And then a guy named Galileo comes along with a telescope and he goes, guys, I hate to tell you this, but the earth's going around the sun. And what they do, they threw him in jail. So when we get these new perspectives, sometimes people don't always like it. But in the case of Afformations, in the case of my Afformations method, people love it because they go, oh my God, Noah, I've been using these stupid affirmations for years because that's all they told us. That's all they taught us. And, you know, if you're only told one thing, what are you going to have to do? You have to do the thing that they told you. So when I came along the scene about 30 years ago, people got very, very excited about this. And they still are, of course, to this day. It's the number one thing that people ask me about is my Afformations method. And so, you know, now we have over 3 million, we call ourselves Afformers from all around the world, over 140 countries. And so, again, you can, go to affirmations.com. You can also go on my YouTube channel. I have tons of information on that and to help people use my Afformations method to literally change the questions, change your habits, change your results, and change your life.
Well, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, right? You can see the impact that your system has had on so many people. You're also called the zero friction doctor. Can you explain what that means and how it shows up in your work?
When you think about your business, for everyone listening, every business problem you're facing is a friction problem. And that's why you need a zero friction solution. Now, no one wakes up in the morning and says, wow, I really have a friction problem today. But I want to show you that that is, in fact, what you have without knowing it. So I want you to imagine your goals, right? Everybody has goals. And you've heard it a million times, you got to set your goals. Well, that's true. You do have to set your goals. Very important. But I want you to think about your goals in a different way today. And I want you to think about your goals as a destination. So let's just say you're in business and you want to go from making $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month, or $100,000 to $1 million, or $1 million to $10 million, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. Let's say that's your goal, right? I have a financial goal that I want to go from here to there. And I, of course, want to have more fun and spend more time with my family, take more vacations, take more time off. This is what every single client that I've ever coached has told me over 30 years, right? They all say the same thing. Just different numbers depending on where you are. So that's your goal. So it's a destination. So imagine you're driving in your car to your destination, right? Your destination's a goal. That's what you're doing. You're driving. You're working hard. You're studying. Whether you're using AI, you're studying courses, you have a coach, you have a mentor, whatever it is, you're driving there and you really want it. So you have your foot on the gas. That's the drive to your destination. But unbeknownst to you, you also have your other foot on the brake. So did you know that 93% of business owners today are driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake? Now, in your car, there are two forces at work. The force of the foot on the gas, which is the accelerator, which drives you towards your destination, and the foot on the brake, which is friction. It stops you. It holds you back. It slows you down and stops you. In your car, you need brakes. If you don't have brakes, you got a problem, right? Because you're going to crash into a tree. So you don't want to have no brakes. But on the other hand, you don't want to be driving down the road with one foot on the brake. It's going to take you a long time and a lot of time, money, and effort to reach your goals. So that is what is happening. Even though most people aren't aware of this, they don't wake up and say, boy, I really have a friction problem. That is, in fact, what you actually have. So every business problem you're facing right now is a friction problem. That's why you need a zero friction solution. And that's why I'm called the Zero Friction Doctor.
That's so interesting. As you say, we do have both those things in our lives, right? The one thing that's driving us and then the one thing that is holding us back. Many entrepreneurs believe that success requires hustle and burnout, but you've helped clients, and you mentioned it earlier on as well, to make more in 12 weeks than they did in 12 months. What's the key shift they had to make or that they have to make for this to happen?
There are two forces at work, like I just talked about, your foot on the gas and your foot on the brake, but there's also another two different elements that I teach my clients, and that is inner game and outer game. Your inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but it's affecting everything that you do. And then your outer game is everything you can see directly that's also affecting everything that you do. So let me give you an example. I was speaking at a conference in Los Angeles for 1,000 business owners, entrepreneurs. These are 7, 8, 9-figure CEOs, founders, very successful people, right? So I spoke for about 30 minutes. I was walking off the stage after my presentation. A man came up to me out of the audience and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You are the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. Okay, well, what's going on? He goes, Noah, I own this company. I'm the founder, and we got to 7 figures really quickly, but we have been stuck at the same level for the past 4 years. He said, I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing. I've hired every marketing guru on the planet. He named all the big names. And he said, but we're still stuck. And he said, as soon as I heard you speak about friction and head trash and inner game and outer game and everything you just said, he said, I knew that you were the coach I've been looking for. So he literally decided to hire me on the spot. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? Because they make decisions quickly and firmly. They don't dilly-dally, don't mess around. They don't say, oh, I got to think about it. They just said, let's do it. So he literally decided to hire me on the spot. I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. And in that 18 months, do you know that we were able to get his company that had been stuck for the previous 4 years to over 20 million in revenues in less than 18 months? That's a 600% increase in less than 18 months. Now, most founders would be thrilled with a 10% increase, a 15% increase. They'd be popping the champagne. How about 600%? While working less, he actually texted me. He said, hey, Noah, I'm on the beach in Monte Carlo right now. Thanks for changing my life. And I'm like, you're welcome. That's how powerful this is.
You often talk about head trash. You've said it a few times. What is head trash exactly? And why is it so important to get rid of it?
Yes. So go back to your goals. Everyone listening, think about your goals again. See, this is all based on your goals. What do you want? And guess what? Most people actually don't know what they want. And, so like a lot of people say, well, Noah, I want more money. Okay, here's $5. Go away. No, you got to be a lot clearer than that, right? I mean, you can't just say, I want more. How much do you want? And by when? And what do you want to do to get it? So there's all these things you have to do. But nevertheless, let's say you are clear on your goals. But what happens, everybody talks about goals, right? But what they don't talk about is what happens after you set the goal. And what happens after you set the goal is 10 times more important than the goal. Because think about this. Let's say, go back to my example. Hey, Noah, I want to go from making $10,000 to $100,000 a month in my business. Great, that's your goal. But you know what most people do? They go, I probably can't do it. I'm too busy. I don't have the time. Oh, I don't have the money. I can't afford this. I've tried coaching before. It just doesn't work. Oh, I'm sure it'll work for everyone else, but it probably won't work for me. Do you see what I just did? I just gave all these excuses about why it won't work. And guess what? You're going to make yourself right.
You mentally sabotage yourself before you even start going.
But see, what's so funny about that, going back to what I said about friction, is that your head trash is the invisible brake. Your head trash is the invisible brake that is, in fact, holding you back. So for most people listening to this program, they know what they want. They know what they should be doing. And guess what they do? Not that. They do something else. Oh, man, I really should write that blog post, but I think I'll go watch Netflix. I think I should, record a video, but I think I'll scroll on social media. You see, we're just wasting time because we're scared. And what's that? Head trash. And what's that? Friction. And what's that? The invisible brake. See how this all works together? So head trash, invisible brake, friction, it's all the same thing. It's just different ways of saying these are the things that are holding you back. And just like Adam, when I teach you how to stop stopping yourself from success, how to remove the invisible brake, boom, you can get that hockey stick growth. I mean, doubling, tripling, 600%, 800%, 1,500%. We've seen increases we've seen with our clients. And we're not talking about over 10 years. We're talking about in 12 to 18 months, these incredible increases when you get your foot off the brake.
Yeah, so when you have that mindset shift, it can make such a huge impact.
Exactly.
In your coaching, you mentioned the unconscious habits of highly successful people. What are some of those habits that we should know about?
Well, there are 11 total power habits. All right. So that's what I wrote many years ago that created this program and, books and programs and coaching on what I call the Power Habits System. The full name is the Power Habits of Unconsciously Successful People. Now, that's a mouthful, but it's very simple. What I realized many years ago is that highly successful people are doing things unconsciously that they don't even know they're doing, number one, and therefore, number two, they can never teach it to you. Because a lot of people study habits, right? We've heard the habits a million times, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Atomic Habits, and lots of books like that, which are great. The problem is they're talking about conscious habits. Do this, do that, do this. Fine, nothing wrong with that. The problem is that we're talking about human beings. And human beings, what's known as the iceberg principle of human behavior. And that is, just like an iceberg, only about 5% of our thoughts, behaviors, and actions are visible above the surface. That's the conscious habits. But the vast 95% is below the surface. It's the unconscious habits that we're doing that we don't even know we're doing. And that is, in fact, what's causing us to hold ourselves back. So just like I always tell my audience members in my keynote speeches, and my coaching clients, it wasn't the 95%. It wasn't the part of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic. It was the part of the iceberg they didn't see that sunk the Titanic. And that's what's sinking most entrepreneurs as well. It's that hidden unconscious habit, that 95%. So think about it in this way. Imagine you want to change your habits, right? So take New Year's resolutions as a perfect example, right? New Year's resolution. Everybody sets New Year's resolutions. Say, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to stop procrastinating. People set all these resolutions, right? And nothing wrong with that. The problem is no one's taught them how to actually do them. So they just say these things and then they don't follow through. So I've always said to my keynote speeches and to my clients, the gyms are full on January 2nd and by January 30th, they're empty again because people don't follow through. So when it comes to the power habits of unconsciously successful people, one of them is, in fact, my Afformations method. See, they don't even know they're doing this. So they could have never told you. When I say they, I mean highly successful people. So that's what I did 30 years ago is I identified and systematized these power habits so now anybody can do it.
You have said that willpower is the worst way to change a habit. That's a bold claim. Why do you say that?
I want you to think about what willpower is. Let me give you an example. So imagine that you're in your kitchen one day. You're just sort of hanging around, you're in your kitchen, and all of a sudden somebody comes into the kitchen with a freshly baked tray of chocolate chip cookies. So there's a freshly baked tray of chocolate chip cookies. They just came out of the oven. You start to smell the chocolate chip cookies. You breathe it in and your mouth starts to water. You're like, oh boy, those sure look good and they smell good. And you're like, oh boy, right? You get excited. And then that person says to you, all right, now listen, I have to go to the store and pick up a few things. I'm going to leave the cookies here. So now don't have a cookie because they're for later. All right, we're going to have them later. So don't eat a cookie. And they leave. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to eat 12 cookies, right? You're like, you're going to be like a cookie monster.
Of course, there's no one there to stop you.
Exactly. So that's what willpower is like. All right, willpower is basically you trying to get yourself to not do something you wanted to do in the first place. Well, guess what? We humans aren't very good at that. We humans aren't good at denying ourselves of anything. So that's why willpower, it's not wrong. It's not a bad thing. It just doesn't work very well. It's like trying to lift a 200-pound weight with your pinky. It's just not a great idea. It's not a strong enough muscle. So what I do that's different is I teach you, look, you don't need willpower. When you start using these power habits like my Afformations method, you don't even need willpower. You don't need motivation anymore. On my very first book cover, I mentioned earlier, I've written 25 books. My very first book, which was published by the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher many years ago, right on the front cover, it said, beyond motivation, beyond positive thinking. See, that's why we need these power habits, because so many people are unknowingly, and because, they were taught wrong, they were taught, well, you got to use willpower, you got to get motivated. And it's like, no, you don't actually need that. You really don't, because it's a weak muscle. Instead, you just install these habits. You start using my affirmations method, and it just starts to change by itself on its own without you having to use willpower.
Yes, so if you have a system that you can rely on rather than willpower, that makes a lot more sense. You've worked with top CEOs, elite athletes, and a lot of successful people. Do they have similarities when it comes to their mindset?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed is that there's a lot of miserable millionaires out there. What I mean by that is, what I teach is what I call my freedom lifestyle equation, right? My freedom lifestyle formula. And my freedom lifestyle formula has 4 elements. And if any of these 4 elements isn't in balance, then you're going to experience something that is not freedom and, frankly, not happiness or fulfillment. So the 4 elements of my freedom lifestyle formula are time, energy, relationships, and money. Time, energy, relationships, and money. So, for example, everyone listening to this program right now can actually give yourself, I call it the freedom lifestyle temperature scorecard. You can do that right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how abundant or stuck do you feel in time? In other words, are you constantly saying to yourself, I just have so much to do and I have no time, right? If you're constantly saying that, we've got to install these systems to give you your life back, give you your time back. Because guess what? Time is the most valuable resource. Why? Because we can never replace it. All of Bill Gates' billions can't buy 1 minute of yesterday. Time is the most valuable resource we have, but we never treat it that way. Everybody thinks you're going to live forever. And so far, that hasn't worked out. So in the game of life, Father Time is undefeated. So time is the most valuable resource for that reason. Next is energy, right? How are you going through your day? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 means like I'm miserable, I'm angry, I'm just grumbling all day, frustrated, whatever. And 10, of course, is happy, joyful, grateful. So scale of 1 to 10. How are you doing on energy? Scale of 1 to 10. Next is relationships. How are you doing on your relationships, right? Many people have relationships that are broken or breaking. They're not healthy. There's a lot of energy vampires out there. Everybody listening knows what I mean by that, right? So scale of 1 to 10, and then scale of 1 to 10, money. Money is important. There's people who say, well, money doesn't buy happiness. And to those people, I always quote the great philosopher David Lee Roth, who said, money may not be able to buy happiness, but you can buy a yacht. So you can pull right up next to it. So time, energy, relationships, and money, that's my freedom lifestyle. So for the people out there listening, if you're feeling imbalanced or you feel like, gee, I scored myself kind of low in 1 or more of these, that's where we need to get you some help. And, we have books, courses, coaching, one-on-one, group coaching. And of course, I do keynote speeches for companies, teams, organizations all around the world. So we have tons of resources to help you get that freedom lifestyle that you really want.
I think answers my next question I was going to ask is to make it practical for someone feeling stuck or feeling like they don't have that balance. What is the first step? Go to your website and pick up a book?
Well, of course. I would say that. But yeah, again, what I would do right now is just do that scorecard right now. You can literally do that in 30 seconds. Time, energy, relationships, and money. Anything below a 25, so again, scale of 1 to 10, right? So your perfect score will be 40. Well, nobody scores a 40, but if you score 25 or below, then we've got to get you some help. So on my website, noahstjohn.com, you can go, you can see we have books, we have courses, we have coaching. But one of the things you can do right now is get what I call a revenue ceiling audit. So this goes back to what I was talking about right at the beginning, which is looking at the hidden friction, the invisible brake that you are unknowingly driving down the road with right now, right? The invisible brakes that are holding you back. So if you go to breakthroughwithnoah.com or just go to my website, noahstjohn.com, you can get a revenue ceiling audit because, see, one of the things that I'm known for is helping entrepreneurs break through their revenue ceiling. I'll give you a quick example of that, if I may. I have a program called the 12-Week Breakthrough because I'm known for helping people make more than 12 weeks and in the previous 12 months while winning their lives back. Well, one entrepreneur that I was coaching, her name is Tamisa from Arizona, and she's a real estate professional, and she was doing well in her business, making 6 figures, but she could never break through that income ceiling, that revenue ceiling. And so she was going to all these seminars, seminars running around all over the place. She calls herself now a recovered seminar junkie. She was going to all these seminars, right? and doing okay, but never able to break through that revenue ceiling. Well, she joined my 12-week breakthrough coaching program, and in 2 weeks, she tripled her investment. In 2 weeks, we hadn't even gotten to the money part yet, and she already tripled her investment. So looking at all the things you're doing right now, realizing that if you have head trash, if you have your foot on the brake, if you have this invisible friction that you're not aware of, there's no question that you're going to be hitting that revenue ceiling. And just like Adam and Tamisa and all the other clients that I've been privileged to coach over the last 30 years, we can, first of all, identify that revenue ceiling, what's causing it, and then, of course, give you a process, program, framework so that you can break through that revenue ceiling and really win your life back.
Absolutely, because doing a ton of seminars and having no results is absolutely pointless.
Very frustrating. Yes, indeed.
So what's next for you, Noah? You've written 25 books, you've spoken everywhere, you've coached a lot of people. Anything new on the horizon for you?
Yeah, 2 things that I'm very excited about. One is because so many of my clients have been telling me that they're tired of putting out all this content and still not being recommended by AI. My team and I created a new program platform called ClickPulse AI. And you can go to clickpulseai.com. You can actually start a free 7-day trial. And what it is in one click, we give you content, blog posts, articles, emails, social posts that will get you cited by the LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, and Perplexity. That's very exciting because we've found that most experts, entrepreneurs are wasting 10 to 20 hours a week doing content that isn't getting them ranking anymore. And so we're helping entrepreneurs to take that off their plate and give them their lives back. So clickpulseai.com. And the second thing I'm very excited about is I'm coming out with my first children's book. My wife and I wrote a children's book. It's called I Ask Better Questions. And it's all about the Afformations angel named Affy. And he comes down and he helps kids to get more self-esteem, to take tests better, alleviate stress, and just feel that self-confidence, self-esteem that every kid needs. So that's coming out soon. That'll be on our website and at iaskbetterquestions.com. That site is coming soon at the time of this recording, but very excited about those 2 things as well.
Amazing. Well, the Click Pulse, I was sort of thinking, why? How does that sort of fit into what you've always done? But at the end, you brought it in. You said, by doing this, I'm saving my clients a lot of time trying to get seen by the LLM. So that makes sense. And I love the children's book. I think that's absolutely brilliant because oftentimes we wait till we're adults before we start looking at how to channel ourselves and to find the affirmations that's going to make the change in our lives. Why not start with our children and get them on the right path early on? I love that. I'm excited for your book.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. My wife and I this together, and I'm just super excited about both of those things for those reasons. Yeah, giving people back their lives, with their time, and then helping kids, the next generation, to use my Afformations method. And we've seen it change so many lives. And of course, we want to help people and change even more lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It also helps for those that have already seen your system work in their lives. It will also help them to know in what way to speak to children, how to help them to have that correct mindset without all the head trash from a young age. I love it. And I love that you did it with your wife. That's a real bonus.
Indeed.
Now we've come to the segment of our show where I'll ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Always am.
What's your morning routine must have?
Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Absolutely. Just thanking God for the gifts of my life. And of course, using my affirmations every morning. And why am I so happy? Why am I so healthy? Why am I so rich? And why do I get to talk to so many great people like Hilmarie today?
A book, and I know you've written a bunch of books, but a book that changed your life.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That was the book that inspired me to get into this business. And I actually got to interview Dr. Covey before he sadly passed away several years ago. And he was just a wonderful man and a great mentor and a great man that I strive to be like every day.
Amazing. I think most of us have that book on our shelves, for sure. What does freedom mean to you?
It means having the time, the energy, the relationships, and the money that I truly desire. It's not magic. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. You do have to put in the work. You've got to install the system. But, when you have the framework, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just literally follow the framework and fill in the blanks, and life becomes a heck of a lot easier.
What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
Gratitude. I always come back to gratitude, just thanking God for the gifts of my life. If you don't do that, and believe me, that's not natural for me. I told you I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. So, I was just told, basically, not in words, but, with example from my parents, I was going to be poor my whole life. And so they, through no fault of their own, they are always focused on the negative. And so to focus on the positive and focus on what I want and what I have, it does take effort. It's not natural for me. For my wife, she just does it natural. I'm like, wow, she's amazing. So I learned so much from her about how to go through life happy, joyful, and grateful. But for me, it's a conscious effort that I still have to put in every day, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, you can see that mindset shift from the things you can't have to being grateful for the things that you do have. Well, thank you for playing along. That was easy enough. Now, I would like to ask you a signature green pill question. What green pill advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say to trust yourself more, not to listen to all those gurus out there who tell you that you got to chase all these shiny objects. I did that for a long time, and boy, did that come up empty. I wish I would have saved a lot of time, money, and stress and heartache. I would definitely say to trust myself more and to be just very, very careful about who you let to coach you, to mentor you. Make sure they have success stories. Make sure they've helped lots of other people. And that's why I'd rather brag about my clients than me, because it's not about me. It's about what we're able to do for people and making sure that you become a blessing to others, because the more you bless others, the more that you will be blessed in this life.
I love that. Some excellent key takeaways from that. Trust yourself, but when you do look to others, make sure that you're putting your trust or your time into somebody who's actually proven themselves, and then also be giving back to others. Noah, thank you so much for joining me today. Your insights into mindset, performance, and what really holds people back are truly eye-opening. You've shown us that success isn't about grinding harder. It's about removing friction, rewiring beliefs, and stepping into who we're meant to be. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your books and your programs?
My website, noahstjohn.com. That's my name. NOAHSTJOHN.com. And of course, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is watchnoahtv.com. But I'll mention that other site, breakthroughwithnoah.com. I'm known as the Breakthrough Coach, so easy to remember. Breakthroughwithnoah.com. Get your revenue ceiling audit. And it's, of course, free. It's complimentary, but we'll really show you where your invisible break is and then give you a real solid solution so you can stop stopping yourself from the success you're already capable of.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you again for joining me today. It's been eye-opening and so entertaining. I love your stories. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If today's episode gave you a new perspective, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more change makers just like you. Until next time, clear your head trash and own your power.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.